Stephanie, how are you?
Hi, Martha. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
So tell us about the LIBRE initiative.
Sure. So the LIBRE initiative is a national nonpartisan nonprofit organization, and we work to empower the Latino community to prosper so that they can achieve their American dream. And we have chapters across 13 states, and I am the strategic director of LIBRE here in Georgia. So we work primarily to connect Latinos to policies that align with their values and teach them about the principle of freedom so that they can thrive and achieve their American dream, which is the reason that most of us come here. We also help give them an understanding about how certain policies and principles actually lead to greater prosperity for their families and businesses. And we do this in a variety of different ways. We have English classes, civics classes, entrepreneurship classes, and we also do issue-based advocacy to connect them to the policies that we're working on and connect them with their communities and local government. And just one of the things that I particularly love doing is showing them how easy it is to get involved with local government. Earlier this year, I took a group of Latinos to the Capitol, and they were just absolutely in shock and awe at how easy it was to go there. And it's really as simple as calling or emailing your rep and introducing yourself as one of their constituents. And so I've experienced firsthand the need for this kind of education in the Latino community.
So tell us your story. How did you get involved in this?
So I am Latina myself. My mom's family is from Guatemala, and I grew up deeply embedded within the Latino community in Virginia, which is where I grew up. And so, I had exposure with the community, and I grew up here. I was born here, and I grew up here. So I'm first generation American, and I actually have an interesting background. I was primarily in the music industry as a touring heavy metal drummer, and then a very serendipitous offer from a friend allowed me to start working on some congressional campaigns up in Maryland where I was living at the time. And I just realized that, standing up for my values and educating the Latino community was one of my passions. And then I found this position, and LIBRE just connected with what I truly feel about, the need in terms of educating Latinos and helping them succeed, just like my mom did.
I've always had this theory about why the Latino community kind of assimilates so seamlessly into American culture. And here's my theory, okay? You can tell me if it's right or wrong, is that
all right.
Americans are all different kinds of people. They're from white to black and everything in between, but we're united by one language, English. Latinos are the same way. They are everything from white to black, everything in between, but they're united by one language, Spanish. And so because of that there's already this foundation of kind of understanding how to work hard, how to be involved in the community, the family part of it. But I think that the kind of core of it, I've always thought, is this similarity between the fact we are out of many one, and it's kind of the same thing within the Latino community.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head and talked about something that a lot of people just don't know. The Latino community isn't a monolith. We are, come from many different countries and are, different colors and backgrounds. And, first and foremost, Latinos value family, God, and faith. Those are the strongest motivators. But they come here to America to work hard. And, they value the freedom to achieve their American dream. And, I find that these values tend to align more with traditional conservative values. And a lot of times they're just missing that educational piece. But, another thing that I like to talk about that people don't know is that 70% of Hispanics in the country are U.S. born. And they want, safe communities just like everyone else. And they're going on second, third, fourth generation. So even though they have their Latino culture, they still identify as Americans first.
I think that was the single biggest mistake that was made by the other side, was the assumption. I mean, obviously you can't vote unless you're an United States citizen. I mean, there are a few places in municipalities where they allow people who aren't citizens to vote in municipal elections. But in federal elections, if you are voting, you are a United States citizen. And especially in the community where people have come here and gone through the hoops and valleys to become a United States citizen. My grandmother did that. They are very serious about other people following the rules, okay? And, because it was hard for them. It wasn't easy. It was worth it. Okay, but it wasn't easy. And I think the biggest misconception and underestimating that the other side did was that somehow that the Latino community was going to be okay with the rampant illegal immigration. And I always say this, where the United States of America immigrates 1.1 million people a year legally, which is more than the rest of the world combined. So by no definition can you say that America is anti-immigrant. But it doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter how you got here. If you're letting 2.5 million people more on top of that come in every year, which is an equivalent to 5% of the U.S. population in a 4-year period, that is something people are concerned about. And it doesn't matter if you're black or white or brown, you're going to be concerned about that.
Absolutely. The majority of Latinos want immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform, that leads to clear and effective pathways for immigration, but also border security. And like you mentioned, that's one of the things that's been the biggest misconceptions. I mean, and, here in Georgia, there are 11% of the Latino population is here in Georgia at over 1 million. And there are 498,000 registered Latino voters. And, they really came out in strong numbers this past election cycle and made their voices heard for sure. But Latinos want safer communities just like everybody else. And so, they tend to support, the current administration's policies to remove security threats, national security threats, and criminals.
We're talking to Stephanie Zanker from the LIBRE initiative. And of course, in state and federal policy, you guys are worried about regulation. You're worried about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So here in Georgia, a big priority for us is regulatory reform. And so a big priority this last cycle was REINS, which stands for Regulations from the Executive in Need of Scrutiny. And we got really, really close this year with the Red Tape Rollback Act. Ultimately, it didn't get across the governor's desk, but we'll be strongly pursuing that again next year and hope to get it done next year. And then on the federal side, yes, we are prioritizing the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which is also known as the Trump tax cuts from 2025. And so we're focusing on holding Senator Ossoff accountable so he doesn't vote to increase taxes on hardworking Georgians. And so those tax cuts are actually set to expire at the end of 2025 if Congress doesn't extend it. And so, if it's not passed, it would essentially lead to the largest tax increase in American history. And so, we need to make sure it passes. Americans and Latinos especially can't afford a tax hike because I think this affects Latino families disproportionately. They often have more kids. They spend more money just to feed their family. And they open small businesses at higher rates. And so extending the TJCA would also really benefit the small business community.
Well, and the other part of it is, and I always say this to folks, is that they keep calling these the Trump tax cuts, but these are actually the rates we've been paying since 2018. So for the last 7 years, these are the rates. So for the average person, these are the rates they remember paying. Okay, I'm a little older. I'm 65, but my daughter's 33. She understands. I mean, the rates she's been paying basically her entire working life have been these rates. Okay, so if you don't extend them, it's not like another tax cut. If you don't extend them, then you're just going to have, like you said, a big tax hike, which nobody wants. I think for Georgia, the average is $2,300 a family that they will pay more in taxes. It's a fallacy to say that this is a tax cut to benefit the rich. This was a tax cut that benefited everybody who was paying federal income tax.
Absolutely. I mean, you're hitting all the nails on the head, and I talk about that all the time. Democrats like to say, oh, well, this is just, it's just going to help the rich. But the reality is the tax cuts may help the rich, but they have a much bigger impact on everybody else. And so that trickles down. And as you mentioned, these taxes could lead to an increase of around, the number that I have is around $2,500 per family. This tax policy helps small businesses be able to expand their business and create jobs within their community. So first and foremost, I view this as just, an economic package that's going to just stimulate and boost the economy.
Well, and in those second and third generations, there's such an opportunity because most of these young people are bilingual And, it's funny, I took 5 years of Spanish in high school and college because my dad, everybody was taking French when I was coming through. And my dad goes, no, the whole world's going to be speaking Spanish. You need to take Spanish. And so I took Spanish. And I have not spoken it as much as I should. So I'm a little rusty on the speaking part of it. But I can read and understand Spanish. And I was so thankful that I had a dad back in 1970 tell me, hey, don't take French. Not that many people are going to speak French. A lot more people are going to be speaking Spanish. So I'm really thankful for that. And, listen to your dad. That's a good message from that.
Absolutely.
That's
he
right.
was a visionary.
That's right. So you work in Hall County and LIBRE Initiative is growing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I like to focus my work on the places in Georgia that have very high Latino populations, and Hall County, specifically Gainesville is one of those. We're going to be doing some work up in Whitfield. Dalton is over 50% Latino, and then also Gwinnett. Gwinnett County alone has over 220,000 Latinos. And so we have actually in Hall County right now some really, really motivated, enthusiastic ladies out knocking doors, talking to voters, asking Latinos what they care about, what their values are, and also asking them to hold Senator Ossoff accountable.
Amen
But
to
we
that.
do, yes. So we definitely are prioritizing that, and we do have a full-time position open right now. It's a grassroots engagement director position open in both Hall counties and Whitfield counties, where I'm looking. And you'll primarily be out interacting with the community on the ground and, helping connect them to some of the things that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the interview. So, I'd just like to ask your listeners if they're interested in applying or know somebody who might be a good fit, who's, proficient in English and Spanish, to please reach out to me and get involved.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Senator Ossoff again because, I've gotten to know him pretty well and we've had a good working relationship. I mean, I'm a conservative Republican. He's a Democrat. But my biggest concern about him, and I'm not saying anything publicly that I haven't told him, is that your campaign face and your official face are so far apart right now that it doesn't even look like you. And he is much more concerned with the caucus than the constituents. And he needs to vote the way his constituents want him to vote, not the way the caucus wants him to vote. And you know what, quite frankly, I know how they play the game. He's got to get a lot of money from DSCC to be able to run this race. And he's got to toe the line with the caucus in order to do that. And I can't see him stepping out on a limb and voting the right way, but you can always hope.
Yeah, he tends to be a pretty strict party line voter. And so, we're just hopeful that he thinks about his constituents. I mean, people these days vote their values and their pocketbooks. And the truth is, without these tax cuts, people are going to be hurting in an already struggling economy that we came off of the last 4 years from the disastrous Biden economy. So,
Stephanie Zanker, thank you so much for being with us today.
All right. Thank you very much, Martha. It was an honor.